Hello, it's Michael here. This is just a quick note before we get properly into the episode, which is going to focus on the amazing person and performer, Helen McCrory. When we set up the podcast and we want to celebrate actors who, for one reason or another, were not getting the parts that we thought they truly deserved while also shining on screen already, Helen McCrory was top of that list. So we actually recorded this. This is the third episode. We did it in March. Sadly, 2 weeks later, Helen passed in mid-April, and we shelved it. We weren't quite sure what we were going to do with it. But as time has passed and as we re-listened to it and thought about Helen, it just felt clear that we should be putting this out there, celebrating her work, and encouraging people to watch her films. And we hope that you enjoyed the episode.
I want to know everything there is to know about you.
I'm going to introduce me.
You must have spotted her by now. She's always there.
Don't I deserve love?
Somebody has to like me best.
Welcome to the Don't Know Her podcast. I'm Michael.
And I'm Scott.
And we talk about actors that we feel are underappreciated or overshadowed somewhat in the film industry, and people that we also happen to love. Isn't that right, Scott?
That's absolutely right, Michael. We love them.
And today we have someone I hope we both love very much. I know I do. Helen McCrory.
So off to see your girlfriend?
Now.
You know, I hope she shows you some respect this time. It's quite a debt of gratitude she owes you. Mr. Saviour of the monarchy.
Helen is probably best known to people for her roles in Harry Potter or James Bond in Skyfall. That sounds like she is James Bond in Skyfall.
She is James Bond in Skyfall. Helen McCrory was James Bond in Skyfall.
She's Harry Potter, she's James Bond, she's all these people.
It was such a time
No. People would know Helen from, Peaky Blinders or Harry Potter and James Bond and all this sort of thing. But Helen has been working steadily from like 1990, where she was in Harrogate Theatre. Is that how you Harrogate?
In Harrogate.
And she, I've never been, but I'm sure it's lovely. And then quickly seemed to go to London, working in the National Theatre and things like Trelawney and the Wells. Trelawney of the Wells. Getting her first film part as Whore Number 2 in Interview with the Vampire. But she did mostly do a lot of stage and TV work. Obviously The Queen was a big moment for her film career in 2006. And she's done a good bit of film, TV, and stage since then. But it does seem like on film, there's things like Harry Potter and Skyfall, and smaller things like A Little Chaos, Their Finest, Loving Vincent. But it's stage and TV where recently she's been able to flex her acting muscles in things like Madea at the National Theatre or The Deep Blue Sea. And on TV, everyone seems to be watching Peaky Blinders, where she's a Brummie matriarch. And yeah, people just generally see, I'm excited to see her on TV or do anything she wants to, but it does frustrate me she doesn't get more to do in film, because she does, and why I'm glad you came up with, or you suggested her for this, she does have this star quality, like her presence, like on a red carpet. She arrived at the Skyfall premiere and you'd swear she was the star, like she was James Bond or she was a Bond girl, but instead she plays, a relatively small part of the Home Secretary. Small part in the film. In real life, that's a very significant part to play. But yeah, she's really fun. I just love watching her, and I don't know, I feel lucky to have her. Like, she comes into a film, and even if it's like a very flimsy sort of part, she seems to inject enough like personality into it to make it feel real and to make it feel kind of better than it probably is on paper.
Oh, definitely. No, she is radiant. She does give that star quality. She elevates things big time. She's an elevator, and I don't mean like a lift.
Well, she lifts, but on that point, she does lift her co-stars. Like watching
she
these films,
does.
she is an elevator for her like some of these films, they give her like bad wigs or bad costume, or not bad, but like not the best. Like they're catering to other people more so, it seems.
No, I love
And
it.
she is still delivering, and yet it's her co-stars that get the credit. Sometimes get an
Exactly.
Oscar.
It's like, ping, Helen McCrory's here. How far can I take you?
Yeah, and I think writers and directors probably do think of her in that way. You know, like I mean, if you were sitting down and be like, okay, we have this role of, you know, someone that's a mother or wife or judge or prime minister or whatever it is that is going to get us from here to here and has to change the tone and has to do all these
Yeah.
things. Like she will deliver. She's
Yeah, she
great.
will. She will. That's it. You get her signed up for that, and that's what a lot of people do. The role's only 2 minutes. We feel embarrassed to ask, but we need Helen. We need Helen to come in and lift the shit out of this tiny little part.
And she lifts it. She's a grafter and she does well.
So I chose to do Helen for this week's edition. And I guess normally the gist with choosing someone is would be because they are incredibly special to you, and or they bring you all the warm and fuzzies. I can't say that that is the case with Helen McCrory, but that is no bad thing. She is someone to me who stands out whenever she is on screen. I have not seen her on the stage. I have seen a filmed production of something she did on stage, but for me, it is just something about when she is there on screen, she makes her mark, and therefore she really sort of felt like a fitting choice for this podcast because in terms of her film work, certainly, I would have anticipated there to be a lot more of it, considering the weight that she has brought to the theatre and TV in, say, the past 5 or so years. She's been incredibly present on British TV over the past handful of years in, like you said, Peaky Blinders, Mother, Father, Son, Fearless, Penny Dreadful, Quiz, the show about Who Wants to Be a Millionaire that was on during the pandemic, which was totally great. And she's also a voice of a daemon in the His Dark Material series. So she has a lot going on there and is doing really good stuff. But that doesn't translate to cinema, right? There's a lot of high profile films here, but she is quite often a blink and you miss it situation.
Yeah, she is. I mean, she is someone for me that I would not miss her. Maybe as horror number 2 in her first role, but like lately, even in some of the films, watching like where she like pops up for a second, like Charlotte Gray, she is someone that the film she's crucial to the film's narrative. She kind of kickstarts that beginning, or basically the middle of that film, and she's quite memorable for me.
She's very memorable.
Yeah, so I find it interesting that the roles haven't really been given to her when she has proven herself so talented on stage and, as you say, on the small screen. Like watching for this podcast some of those TV shows, I've only watched a few episodes of Mother, Father, Son, and Roadkill, where she played the Prime Minister with Hugh Laurie last year, and she's terrific. Like she's not they're shared. She's not the lead in those TV shows, but whenever she's on it, like the show just to me is magnetic, and I guess that's why I don't forget her. I find her presence very I don't know, electric.
Yeah, oh no, that's
like
what
that.
I mean. When I say blink and you miss it, I don't mean because she's forgettable. She's the opposite of forgettable. It's because she ain't given the time, as we so often see. But what is your first memory of Helen McCrory? Where did she first capture you?
I mean, my first memory, and you've already told me before we started recording that I don't say this title right, so I'm just going to refer to it as Martin Scorsese's family film about an orphan child
No,
named
go on, say it.
Harry.
It's so much more fun.
Hugo. Hugo? I don't know if
Hugo.
it's my Irish accent or what it
Yeah,
is,
just
but
go with it. Michael says
you have
Hugo, so
maybe
let's just let him say Hugo
Hugo.
for a while.
Okay. Okay, so Hugo, I absolutely love Hugo. I would have known Helen before the Queen, and admired her performance and all that sort of stuff. And we'll talk about that film more, as it seems quite integral to her film career. But Hugo is where, like, I fell in love with that movie and fell in love with her part in it. So Hugo is a story of a young boy, who is an orphan who lives in a train station and stumbles into the kind of the preserving of film history, really. It is like this gorgeous film to me, and it's very heartfelt. And Helen McCrory plays the wife of. How would you describe? I'm going to put it to you. That's so unfair. I have her name written down. How do you say her name?
She is the wife of pioneering filmmaker George
Georges.
Miles. Georges Mal.
You don't say Mel. You say Méliès.
Oh, George Méliès, that's exactly it.
So Helen McCrory is playing the wife of George Méliès. She kind of herself and her husband have departed their connection to film, and they want to forget about it because it's heartbreaking. And she was an actress in his films, and the not that the film Hugo cares that much about her story, but she really is there as a gatekeeper between Hugo's kind of ploy to reconnect George Méliès with his films. And that's a really long-winded way, but that is what is going on in the movie.
No, but that's fair enough because I don't think it's an easy film to describe. There's a lot going on. This is Martin Scorsese juggling a lot of things at once. But it's charming, man. It's a really fun one. I hadn't watched Hugo since it came out and could barely remember bits of it except perhaps the tone. And it's really charming. It's really sweet. It's a good one. I really enjoy it sort of capturing of French fantasy type cinema. It really sort of echoes things like Amelie. It has that sort of vibe to it. It was a really enjoyable watch, yeah. But Helen again is so she has a very integral role in this movie. She's certainly more present in this film than she is in other ones. But again, she doesn't drop in for a bit. But at the moment she comes into the picture as this character, the wife of George Méliès, she turns things around, and that's the point at which the film changes from a tale of a boy into one which is sort of veering towards the birth of cinema, basically. And she's sort of there to be a catalyst in the film, and you would want Helen McCrory as a catalyst in your film, so I full respect for that casting choice.
Yeah, but once she turns into like, oh my God, you have one of George's films, and they sit down and watch it, and it's her reaction and everyone's reaction to her watching it. It's like this gateway into cinema.
You're an actress, a real cinema actress. It's impossibly romantic with
It wasn't like that. We weren't movie stars like they have today. But we did have fun.
And then she's the one that goes to Ben Kingsley as George Méliès and says,
George, you've tried to forget the past for so long. It's brought you nothing but unhappiness. Maybe it's time to try and remember.
cue me crying in the cinema. I think I saw it twice in the cinema and hadn't seen it until now. And I think my memory is like, oh, this is not as good as I remember.
Okay.
But I loved it. I like, and the music, Howard Shore's score.
It's really great.
And we should say Helen is way too young to be playing this part in reality, but they've cast her. This is before the de-aging technology of The Irishman for Scorsese. So they decided. So Helen is around 45, I think, about this point. Ben Kingsley much older, and they're supposed to be similar age. But Helen plays both present day Mrs. Millier and the actress in the film. So I assume the idea was she would be able to be convincingly in her 20s and convincingly in her 60s, 70s. I don't know what age she's supposed to be.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I wouldn't say convincingly, but also not because she wasn't doing it. I don't think the hair and makeup was trying to make her look much older than late 50s type. So
no,
compared
yeah.
with Ben Kingsley, I just assumed, so you might be correct that they were meant to be a similar age. I just assumed that there was supposed to be a 20 or 30-year age gap between the two of them.
Oh, maybe, yeah. Sorry, it's just from as you have pointed out. I don't think it's very convincing, the aging of Helen McCrory, and she does this like arched kind of back. So I love her. I like her performance, but the arched back and kind of the wig give away or suggest that we're supposed to think she's an older woman.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
I mean,
yeah. Yes, no, of course,
know,
definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, so she and why not? And actually, that part, she does, invest a lot. You can imagine like an older woman playing that part, and it would automatically be emotional to watch somebody, an elderly person, reflect on something.
Yeah.
But Helen delivers all of that, regardless of the bad wig, and regardless of the, I don't know if you call it movement or her archbackness, which anyway, she does well, and she is obviously very convincing as a young woman in these silent pictures. And to be working with Scorsese, and I know the cast is pretty full on in terms of people that would be right for this podcast. So you have like France de la Tour, you have Emily Mortimer, you have Christopher Lee, who I would hope most people would know, and you've Sacha Baron Cohen. What is his name? Yeah,
Sacha
Baron
Baron
Cohen.
Boa.
Mr. Isla Fisher himself as the train master,
that's it.
And whoever plays his dog, he's a great performer at that done. And as well, Chloe Moretz in probably her least annoying performance. I mean, I don't mind her in general. I just feel like people
annoying.
don't. Is she? She's very precocious. She plays the grandchild of Helen McCrory and Ben Kingsley. And she does say a lot of irritating things, but I don't mind it because she's very sweet natured. Like she's giddy.
Yeah, no, she is fine in this. No, she's sort of charming. In this one, she is using that energy, which makes her sort of precocious in other things more so. I think that's sort of weird. It's because Chloe Grace Moretz's acting teacher is her brother, and it just screams it in everything else she does. But here, that energy's harnessed very well, and it works.
She's also linked with a boy who might have the energy of her brother. Like, there's something about that dynamic between herself and Asa Butterfield. How do you say his name?
Oh my God, that's a good question. I don't think I've ever said it out loud. Asa Butterfield. Asa. Must be Asa, I think.
Yeah, he's great. He's good in it too. As a child actor, it's the lead in a film. But the other thing about Hugo, before we move on, is watching, and particularly Helen's performance, is in lockdown, like not going to the cinema, watching a character reconnect with cinema is quite kind of euphoric sort of feeling. I don't know if you felt the same way. Watching her like emotionally connect with that screen, I was like, this is how it's going to feel being reconnected with cinema ourselves. So my nostalgia really came to the fore watching Hugo this time.
Yeah, I can completely understand seeing Hugo and having that moment with Helen. I don't know why I couldn't remember her in this. Really, I couldn't, which is just suggests that I couldn't really remember as much of Hugo as I thought I could.
Well, what did you remember?
Like not a lot. But to be honest, I preferred it. I remembered it being good, but I certainly enjoyed it more than I thought I would. But no, I think that was the thing with Helen for me, is that I I can't remember her in a few films that I have seen before until, say, Harry Potter came out, and she's a really small role in Harry Potter. She plays Draco Malfoy's mother, Narcissa Malfoy. And interestingly, she was asked to be Bellatrix Lestrange, I think, but because she was pregnant at the time, the part went to Helena Bonham Carter. And that makes so much sense to me. As I was going back and watching a lot of her stuff, and I didn't really look at Harry Potter again until today, I kept seeing Helena Bonham Carter. I kept being like, these two feel like they're doing similar things. They're going and playing these kind of more severe type, gothic inflected sometimes characters, uh, and then in between that a lot of period characters, and there's a similar energy to them when you watch them being interviewed. There's a similar energy to them both. They look quite similar, so I'm not surprised that they're then ultimately cast as sisters in Harry Potter. But I did remember her quite vividly in Harry Potter. She turns up and she's just so striking. It's Helen McCrory's eyes. To me, she has this steeliness, this sort of ferocity in her eyes, and there's something tangibly dangerous about her. And I don't think that is true. I think she's probably a quite a soft person. I'm not sure. But what I get from her is a dangerous energy, like it could flip. But in stuff like Harry Potter, it's something which is there on the surface. It's sort of simmering away behind the eyes. But she's actually very vulnerable and desperate in Harry Potter, but is barely there, and up against Helena as Bellatrix is complete background noise, quite frankly. Like, you don't stand a chance. Nobody in the room with Helena Bonham Carter as Bellatrix Lestrange in Harry Potter stands a chance. She is dialed up and going for it. So heck, she's good enough to have been remembered by me, but it's just something about her energy, and it is that thing. And she definitely uses that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the biggest Harry Potter. I don't want to say fan because I am a fan. I'm just not like a diehard. But I
Sure.
did spend a few years with a partner who was a diehard fan, and a sister of mine is a diehard fan. So feel like I've done the studio. I've done I'm ingrained in the Harry Potter
Sure.
lore, and the way people would talk about that character and my memory, maybe because of all this kind of chat, is like, oh well, Helen must have had a huge part. Like, I only remembered the very end where um she's asked to confirm whether or not Harry Potter is dead, and
Yes.
she prioritizes her son Malfoy and asking if he's okay, knowing Harry Potter is alive, and tells all of the, you'll know the correct terms, and I don't want people to come at me, but the Voldemort's gang, she tells them Harry is dead, so she can go and save Malfoy, is it? So it's
Yeah.
a very, that is a key part, because she's tricked everybody and all the bad guys. And she has so little time to convey, like, this makes sense. Even though I've been labeled a villain, I'm going to behave in this way and you're going to believe it. And I think it's probably, as you say, like, this sort of like, why would you question her authority? She has this
Yeah.
sort of presence, which she does in a lot of things, but even when it's kind of dialed down to like a casualness, and like Sherry Blair, there is a determination or a confidence there, which really, I don't know how you could cross that.
Yeah.
And you're
No,
right. Like, going
completely.
back to what you said, like, that's interesting. Helena Bonham Carter. I would much rather to have seen Helen McCrory as Bellatrix Lestrange. I think Helena. I love Helena Bonham Carter. I mean, who wouldn't? But she, I think, like, Helen McCrory could have been a bit scarier. Like, I think that part could have been a
Yeah.
bit more nuanced with Helen McCrory
For
in it.
sure. For sure.
Which is, I mean, I'm not a diehard fan, as I said, so who am I to say? Harry Potter, the films are like, torture almost to me, because I'm like, oh yes, look at that cast list. We've got like Fiona Shaw and Emma Thompson and Maggie Smith and Imelda Staunton, Gemma Jones, Shirley Henderson. But really, sometimes they're not even in it, or they're in the background. So, I'm not watching it really to see some of my favorites excel.
Sure, and that's fair enough.
Unless it's Imelda walking around as Umbridge. Honestly, what a great role that was.
Yeah, no, of course, you got plenty from it. But then, speaking of like Bellatrix, I guess that brings us really neatly onto Cherie Blair, and Helen's work in Stephen Frears' The Queen. We could call it a biopic from 2006. Is that right?
Yeah. And yeah, I'd say yes to the biopic, and yes to 2006.
Yes, it is 2006.
Well, it is about it's about Tony Blair coming into power at a time where Princess Diana tragically died, and the Queen's response was very traditional or by the books and had no emotion. So it was about them working together to try and not have the people cut off her head, as Cherie Blair, played by Helen McCrory, very much thinks they should be. Take off their heads, tear down the monarchy. She is very casually like anti-establishment,
yes,
in a great way.
Maybe this time people will find they've seen them for what they actually are.
Which is?
A bunch of freeloading, emotionally retarded nutters.
That's just absurd.
Why? They live in a ludicrous cocoon of privilege and wealth. I mean, they don't pay tax.
Yes, they do.
Not on all their income. The Queen alone costs us, what, 30, 40 million a year?
Look, if you want to have a serious conversation about...
I do.
About the Constitution.
We don't have one.
About ways in which we, as a government, could phase out hereditary privileges, then fine.
If you're going to leave, will you take the plate?
I would say my main memory of Cherie Blair before rewatching it was her shallow curtsy, which, watching it now, so the Queen as a whole, I don't know how you felt about it, but at the time I thought this is a great film, really enjoyed it, like really well crafted, top notch. Watching it now, I just feel some of it, Helen McCrory walking backwards to me is like a parody of somebody being an actor, being Cherie Blair. Or Helen Mirren walking around sometimes is a parody of someone being the Queen. Like I don't know how you describe it, like a troll-like kind of waddle from one side to the other. I mean, I'm not saying any of the performances are bad, but the details to them sometimes are like, what? Like, this is not as good as I thought. I would said it would, compared to say The Crown or something, I would have said this was amazing. But I think that it makes sense that they're all connected to me.
Yeah, completely. It's yeah. Because then you can sort of compare what they're doing in this film to things that are going on in The Crown, and actually, The Crown is going way more heavy-handed with their approach to takes on the likes of Margaret Thatcher and such. But did you go back and have a look at Cherie at all? Did you? Because you've spoken before about the physicality of Helen's performance in The Queen, and it's certainly that there is a way that she holds herself, and it is quite particular. But if you watch Cherie Blair, she does hold herself like that, and she has got this sort of very active head. When she talks, it can be quite bobble-headed, and it's sort of this raised shoulder bobble-headedness, which is what Helen is doing in The Queen. But even more, but she really went in on this. I was listening again to her Desert Island Discs, and she says that she studied Cherie Blair like David Attenborough studied the apes to do this part. So she was really intentionally leaning in on these things, and I guess at moments it can maybe look a bit peculiar. But I really think it's good. I like what she was bringing. She brought really fun energy. She made Cherie Blair like kind of fun to me.
Oh, she was a hoot. I mean, I think maybe it's like the Crown fatigue and the recent stuff with the royal family just I wouldn't have. I think it's safe to say that I'm not the biggest fan of the royal family. So Sherry Blair coming in and being this kind of almost, you could say, voice of reason, but the antagonist. She's the one saying to Tony Blair, who loves the royals, it seems, she's like, why are they there? They cost us this. She should be saying thank you to you. She has a lot of very valid points, and she delivers them well. I mean, I can't say I have actually studied Sherry Blair's movements as much as Helen did, but I did watch a few clips after you told me to, and I do see, the head movements, the things like that I get. I mean, I don't know what it is about curtsies, but anyway, this got me into like a big rabbit hole that I loved, because then I wouldn't be able to curtsy now, because now I have it in my head, like, how do you curtsy?
Oh yeah, no, I wouldn't know. I really must get on that train. I know they make a big gag of it. That like the biggest Sherry gag in the Queen is her shallow curtsy. But I didn't think to go and have a look, so I must go and check out Sherry dropping it for the Queen. Let's see
Oh
how
my
she
god,
goes in.
yeah. And then Theresa May, always worth a
Oh,
always worth a curtsy
always,
watch.
whether it's curtsies, dancing, it's all fabulous.
Oh,
But people obviously thought it was very good. I mean, 2010, the pair of them, yeah, they revisit their roles, that being Michael Sheen as Tony Blair and Helen as Sherry in the special relationship.
so it would have made sense. She was in the Queen. She would have got Bellatrix Lestrange, and she would have perhaps her career. She wouldn't be included in this podcast, and we don't know what would have happened. But instead of that happening, she did go from the Queen, which was her kind of big moment. She was in Becoming Jane, as Mrs. Radcliffe. That is Jane Austen's biopic with Anne Hathaway, where she bitched about being in Ireland and it raining the whole time when she was filming. So that was a pill that was hard to swallow for poor Anne Hathaway. Ireland doesn't always rain, just FYI, but it did for Anne Hathaway. Then she was in Flashbacks of a Fool. She did make it into Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince as Narcissa Malfoy. Was a voice in Fantastic Mr. Fox from Wes Anderson, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Did more Harry Potters, did Hugo. And then really, the next batch of films is a really interesting mix of like Skyfall. So she essentially has one scene, again, for me, steals it. Like her line about,
You'll forgive me for not putting up the bunting. I find it rather difficult to overlook the monumental security breaches and dead operatives for which you are almost single-handedly responsible.
Like, I love her versus Judi Dench's M is amazing.
Yeah.
So great, like a big movie. She has a good enough kind of part in it. Then she's in A Little Chaos, in kind of a biggish part.
Yeah.
And then Woman in Black in a kind of supporting part, a tiny kind of nothing part, but clearly was there for a lot of filming because she's responsible for a group of kids who are leaving London during the Blitz. It's a horror movie. I highly do not recommend that.
No, it's really boring.
She played Queen Elizabeth I in Bill, where if you want to watch like she did not study the Queen Elizabeth I for this. I don't know who she studies. It reminds me of, you remember in Blackadder, like his psychic who was always like dirty and stuff. Like that's the sort of vibe. Baldrick, yeah.
What, really?
And I mean,
instead of actually Queen Elizabeth from Blackadder, not the Miranda Richardson vibes.
No,
vibes.
Oh my god, my memory of Miranda Richardson as a kid in that is she was stunning, like glamorous and sexy. No,
Okay,
Helen McCrory is going into kind of gruesome. And then Their Finest in another kind of small part in an ensemble, and Loving Vincent, another small part, and that's it. But these films, like, I like A Little Chaos is interesting because her mate, Alan Rickman, it was his passion project, and apparently he really wanted her for this part.
Oh, okay, that makes sense then, right. It's a fun part. Yeah, I really, really liked A Little Chaos, and I think I am probably swimming against the tide on feeling on that one. I watched it on a Sunday afternoon, and that was fabulous. I thought it was a good time.
Were you drinking?
No, it just it just really, I don't know, I think the pacing of it and everything worked. She has the best part in it. Like, well, so A Little Chaos it's about a gardener in I don't even know what era you would call it. The era of what king was it? Louis the something.
Historical accuracy doesn't seem to be something yourself or the film care about. So,
It's the when the gardens at Versailles were first coming into their own. Kate Winslet plays a gardener who gets recruited by an architect who is working on the palace to bring her vision to the gardens at the Palace of Versailles. And with that, there is some romantic goings on.
yeah, but explain who is her boss. Like this is the key. This is basically the reason I watched the film when it came out, and probably one of the reasons I enjoyed it at all this time.
So Matthias Schoenaerts, is that how you say his name? Yeah, Matthias Schoenaerts. He is playing the architect, and that man's a dish. So I'm guessing that's what drew
Such
you
a
to
dish.
A Little Chaos.
Well, no, there's a lot going on in it, but yeah, he's a draw. He's a dish and a draw into the films. Okay, well, A Little Chaos is I don't really know how to I don't know like what is the tone of A Little Chaos, because it's kind of like Shohala meets not Sense Sensibility, but there is kind of an edge to it that is kind of going for a seriousness, but
yeah,
at the same time is very twee.
it's that Sunday afternoon British type film. It's drizzling outside. You want to feel a little bit warmed. You want something engaging, but not that you have to think a huge amount about, and you get A Little Chaos. It's very gentle. It's a gentle film. The conflict never really rises to anything which is going to
Oh
throw
my god.
you
Yeah.
for
Well, the
six. So
title
it's
is called
comfortable.
A Little Chaos.
A Little
It's
Chaos.
like exactly. So how could somebody like me be like, I need a little bit more chaos for this film to make sense? Because again, Helen McCrory is the antagonist. She is married to Matthias, and she sees him at the window talking to Kate Winslet. And you were talking about her eyes before, but the daggers she is throwing. So she comes in really elaborately to Matthias when he's like sitting down looking at plans. Like,
what are you studying that's so important?
Some plans. Versailles.
Are these the drawings that woman brought to the house?
They are.
I see. I'm the expert. You're merely the gardener. However grand. Without me to promote your interests, well, use your famous imagination.
she calls him like, you're just a gardener, I'm in charge. But do we have any, like, as a viewer, we don't have any reason to believe that apart from her kind of gaslighting him, right?
Yeah, no, that's it. She definitely is gaslighting him.
But she's like sleeping around. And she's also paying for people to sleep with her.
Yeah.
She's doing a lot of great things. She's wearing, quite a bad wig, quite cheap looking jewelry. So I'm kind of insinuating that this character is just, there's nothing positive about her. But Helen is giving it like a flavor of like a playfulness, and like she's kind of desperate for power or some kind of I don't know, some purpose in her life. But the highlight of the film is her little confrontation with Kate Winslet in the garden that Kate Winslet's been working on. Kate is alone. I don't know how Helen McCrory in her big dress like surprisingly turned up in the garden to surprise Kate.
You're a widow, I believe. How lonely that must be. I've known for some time that Andre had some secret happiness. But my husband's ambitions are married only to mine. You're not the first diversion, and I believe at the moment, not the only one. You will come, and you will go. Understand me, madame. It suits my husband and I this way.
And then in a really strange way, she like gets really close to him, which to Kate Winslet, which takes a long time. Like peels off her glove, touches her face, says,
"Pretty thing,"
and then slowly walks away. And the camera, like you see Kate's reaction, which is, I think Kate's confused what's going on in this scene. So too, I mean, we all are a bit. So she's just kind of looking and being like, "Oh wow, that happened." And then you see from the behind Helen McCrory slowly walking away, and then it cuts back to Kate, and suddenly you see Helen with this, her evil sidekick, and he's like, "We can get the pipes, we can break the pipes, and we can flood the garden."
Yeah.
She's like, "Do it." And then he's trying to have sex with her, and she's like, "Later." Anyway, cut to flooding the garden.
Oh, tell me about it.
Lo and behold, what does Helen do? She leaves her glove. So Mateus knows it was her all along when he discovers the flooded garden. It's a very clumsy sort of thing, but it's enjoyable to watch. And I wish, I wish she had I was hoping for a dangerous liaison sort of ending where, she was trying to put on this persona and somehow she realized it was over and she just screamed and she destroyed everything. And I don't know, instead we get this, she's lying on the bed and Mateus is like, "Honey, it's over. We're over, you're over." And that's all we see of Helen McCrory.
That's the end of Helen. Well, I think she, besides being friends with Alan Rickman, she maybe just signed on because she was pretty thrilled that this time a man was getting the role of whore number 2. So awesome. I don't know if that's at all true, but it's a fun thought.
I'm sure that man has a name in the film, but I honestly couldn't tell you what it was. So no, A Little Chaos was a little fun, but I would have liked a little more fun.
Oh, and there's the strapline.
I know, calling a film A Little Chaos sounds. I'm surprised. I'm sure maybe there was.
I know they must have known they were going twee. How can we make this more twee? Let's call it A Little Chaos. It's a story about gardening and romance. A Little Chaos. Oh, come on. But I enjoyed it. So there's that.
And then did you watch Their Finest? Because Helen,
I didn't rewatch it. I have seen Their Finest, but I didn't revisit.
And do you remember Helen's part in it at all?
I remember that she is like a studio head or a producer. I remember her being quite glamorous in it. That's all I can muster.
Oh yeah, she's super glam. She's this I think German. Don't know. Her brother, played by Eddie Marzain, has died, and she takes over his agency. So she is the agent of Bill Nighy, who plays an actor. And she is really fun. She's really powerful. She kind of throws her weight around, tells him what to do.
I hope I share some of my brother's qualities, Mr. Ambrose. I do not, however, share his sentimental attachments. I will not keep unprofitable clients on the books.
Their Finest is a bit like A Little Chaos in that some of it is quite clumsy, but I think it has a lot of heart. I was really glad to rewatch that.
It's good. I remember it. It's charming.
Again, it's nostalgic about film, and I quite like Gemma Arterton in it. I'm surprised she herself hasn't been, had more opportunities to be a leading actor. But then I can't remember in anything else, so that might be there. And to be honest, I would have forgotten she was in Their Finest because it is such an ensemble film.
Sure. No, she has had good other moments elsewhere, but no, she is. I remember her being pretty good in this.
It was all in all very good, and Loving Vincent. I mean, did you watch that?
No, I would be interested to, but I mean, it does look like you're going on a 10-hour car journey and looking out the window the whole time, and you're sort of asking to be a bit queasy, right? It's a bit strange.
Yeah, it's kind of a queasy sort of experience. It's interesting. It's admirable what they did. So it's Loving Vincent. It's a film about Vincent van Gogh, which is also
Gogh. Vincent van Gogh.
Okay, this episode will just be full of me anyway doing really bad saying bad pronunciations.
I don't think many people say Gogh, but There you go.
Well, it's about that Vincent and it's all done like his paintings, and it's very. I don't know. It is a very disorientating thing to watch after a while, and it's not. The story is not amazing. And Helen plays kind of a mother, again, a gatekeeper to Saoirse Ronan, who the protagonist wants to speak to, and there's not much really going on for Helen there, which is a real shame. Like, so it's very hard, like, to look beyond, really the Queen and Hugo as like proper roles for her in a film. I mean, she was a lead in a film called Flying Blind, which I have seen, but I'm not sure. That's probably not hitting the same register as something like Hugo or The Queen or
no,
even
certainly not
Chaos.
prolific. No. Anything. She certainly had meteor parts in much smaller films, but they ain't the best necessarily. So you're right enough. But yeah, here we go again with someone who's. It just brings a lot with nothing really.
No, it is really interesting, and like, so I've been really lucky to have seen her quite a lot in theatre. I've seen her 3 times at the National Theatre in Last of the Housemans, which was a new play by Stephen Beresford, who for film is famous for Pride, writing that script.
Oh, right, okay.
She was in that with Rory Kinnear and Julie Walters. She was brilliant in that as this quite frustrated sister and daughter. It's kind of like a Cherry Orchard Chekhov sort of rip-off. Is a really unpleasant word to use for it, but it's sort of the same vein. But then Madea, where she played Madea, was incredible. Directed by Carrie Cracknell, and who also did The Deep Blue Sea. And it's The Deep Blue Sea where, I mean, she like blew me out of the water. I thought that's one of my favorite performances I've seen on stage ever. And why are you laughing?
Sorry, I was just thinking of your really fun use of imagery there, talking about the Deep Blue Sea and blowing you out of the water.
Well, so she literally blew us out of the water.
Yeah, I just saw the National Theatre live version when it was released during the coronavirus pandemic. They made it available, and I was so glad I did. Like, that's where it's like, whoa, why are we not giving her roles all over the place? And I guess that's probably why TV's all over it, because hey, they're doing a lot with her. But wow, yeah, my goodness, she's amazing.
And before we go on about like what we want for her, or what, like, how we imagine her career progressing from this point, I have a few questions for you.
Oh wow, bring them to me.
And I'm going to assume, rightly or wrongly, that Helen is listening, and if you do not get these correct, she'll be at your house and she'll demand an apology.
That's fine, but then she'll drop her glove and I'll have a report.
She'll flood your house. She'll touch you, tell you've got a nice face, and then flood your house.
Okay. That's what dreams
that's your prize. Imagine your claim to fame is Helen McCrory flooded your garden. Hello.
I think I flooded my garden about 3 or 4 times whilst watching Helen, so it's only fitting.
Ooh. Nasty. Anyway, swiftly, so the first question is, what did Helen forget when she presented an award at the 2019 TV BAFTAs?
What did she forget when she presented an award? What could she have forgotten if she's presenting an award? I've not seen this, so let me have a think about it. She forgot her glasses.
I'll accept it. I mean, I'm being very pedantic, but her right glasses. So she came on stage with the usual sort of like personality and flair as you would expect of a movie star. Who, even if she doesn't have the movies, she didn't remember her reading glasses.
It's always an honour to present this evening, which is why I'd think I'd remember my right glasses, but I haven't, ladies and gentlemen. So excuse me while I read the autocue.
She read the prompter with sunglasses on, and the audience loved it. She is a star. Like, she has star quality.
Yeah,
so,
she does.
Yeah.
She does have star quality.
And speaking of which, who mistook Helen McCrory when they were visiting backstage when Helen was on Broadway?
Oh yes, I know this one from Helen's Desert Island Discs. That would be Lauren Bacall.
That is correct. Lauren Bacall came back to see someone else, and mistakenly came to Helen McCrory's room. But Helen played it off with her usual flair, said, "Thank you, Miss Hepburn. I loved you in Philadelphia Story." And apparently the two were chums evermore. And finally, what did the Queen congratulate Helen for when they met?
Okay, so the Queen. The Queen congratulates Helen for her. Oh, I hope it's not something really dull. For your work on the theatre.
No, but she did get no B for that. But
So she has
I'm sure. No, she got she congratulated her for her curtsy. So
Oh, a knowing wink.
yeah, Helen was oh, that didn't even occur to me. And I don't think it occurred to Helen McCrory either. I hope she is listening. But it's because of a little chaos, she was learning how to curtsy like a 17th century curtsy, an old-fashioned thing. And Helen, I mean, again, if you want to believe, I believe these things. You have a more cynical perspective, perhaps. But Helen did this 17th century elaborate curtsy for the Queen, and apparently one of her ladies in waiting said the Queen hasn't seen that in however long and loved it and da 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 da.
Whoa! Oh my God! No, it was from doing it badly for Cherie that she absolutely knocked out the park for the big lady herself. Good work, Helen.
Do we think the Queen watched the Queen?
Yeah, apparently she did. I remember at the time it came out, she met. Well, obviously she gave Helen Mirren a damehood, but I'm pretty sure they like met after the film was made. There was a screening of it. I do remember all of this, so she did watch it. But now I'm really puzzled thinking about that, thinking of the Queen watching the Queen, because it doesn't look kindly on her.
If I was the Queen, I'd be like, I do not walk like that.
That's the main takeaway.
That would be my main takeaway. So I don't. Oh, you got Lauren Bacall, but that's because you did your homework. I'm going to be very Helen McCrory about it, or her persona on screen, and be like, you don't deserve anything for that. I'm not putting out the bunton for that.
Oh, sugar. Oh well, I tried.
So I hope you have enjoyed us looking back on Helen's filmography, and then doing. Would you say all right in the quiz, Scott? Your performance, I don't know how happy Helen.
No, I'm pretty sure that was not a good achievement on my part.
But we are now recording this afresh, now in August 2021. And we're going to talk about what we would recommend you seek out to get more of Helen McCrory. So what would you be recommending people to seek out, Scott?
In terms of kind of what we've spoken about in this episode, I think it's clear that Hugo is sort of the standout in her film career. It gives her a lot to do. It gives her a very important part that she deserves. Kind of, she becomes she's the turning point of the film. She's the catalyst of kind of the film moving forward, and I like that for her. And she does a really good job in the film, and she's very warm and lovely in the film. And it's just a great one to go back and watch anyway. So I would point people towards Hugo. Otherwise, it's a shame. Obviously, everything that's happened this year has happened at the peak of a very exciting career. I do truly think that things were going to be moving up and up from here, and we were especially seeing that, in my opinion, with her work on television at the moment. Last year, one of my favourite shows during the lockdown was Quiz, the show about Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and she gets to play the defense lawyer in the third episode of Quiz, and she does a wonderful job, and she proves exactly why she should be hired all of the time, and it was a wonderful thing. So I would push people towards Quiz. But yeah, just lots of exciting TV stuff. You could go and watch a handful of stuff at the moment. Otherwise, I would point you towards her work in kind of her National Theatre productions, in terms of what's available. Michael, you might be able to give more insight on this.
Well, at the moment, it seems like Madea, where she plays a woman on the verge of a nervous breakdown who murders her children, that is available at National Theatre at Home, which is the National Theatres of Great Britain's streaming service, which is a great production. But the show which I'm like obsessed with Helen McCrory, and I was lucky to have seen quite a few with productions with her, was the Deep Blue Sea, the Terence Rattigan play, which was available on National Theatre at Home and now isn't. So I'm hoping they'll put that back online. So keep an eye on that. Or, I don't encourage illegally streaming, but if you can find it somewhere, do. It's worth it.
Yeah, and it is. I echo that. Her performance in The Deep Blue Sea is as good as you probably can watch on screen. So if you can get, or obviously if you were there to see it on stage, then yes, but you can see a really good version of it, and it plays very well on screen too. Actually,
yeah, definitely. I will never ever be hooked by somebody cooking a meal on stage quite the same way as I was in that theater watching Helen McCrory fry an egg. Like that I feel so blessed to have witnessed that and so much more. But it's a whole package of what she was doing on stage in that, and so many things, and on film, like we've talked about.
Helen will, as I'm sure we've kind of touched on many times in this episode anyway, but she will be remembered as an electrifying performer who always brings just so much energy. She is magnetic to watch all the time. She is one of few who can do what she does in terms of just having you in the palm of their hand. And yes, celebrate a wonderful performer by watching all of these delightful things. And I'd even push you towards her episode of Desert Island Discs, which actually only came out during the lockdown last year, and her reflecting specifically on her memories of childhood and her parents and her husband and all of these things. It's really wonderful and vibrant, and she does it with so much joy that it is a pleasure to listen to. So I'd also push people that way too.
Yeah. And a huge loss. But yeah, what she has given us is terrific.
And we will always remain massive fans. And we're so glad that we had the chance to chat about her and reflect on some of these films and shows and everything. So always grateful. Thank you, Helen.
So, Scott, where can people find us?
Okay, so if you want to drop us a line, send us your thoughts, you can do so by email at don'tknowherpod@gmail.com. But you can also find us on Instagram or Twitter at don'tknowher_pod.
Yes, and please do review, rate us, and that's always really helpful for other people to find us. And if you really want to, share us on. Even just share us to one person. It's really helpful to get us out there.
For sure.
Thank you, Scott, and thank you to everyone listening and joining us for this special episode about a very special actor.
Agreed. Thanks, Michael. Bye-bye.
Bye.